Hello, and welcome to what I suppose is the first official posting about my new PC project. Since Magical Fairy Force Champion Edition is very close to being done, it's pretty much done from a programming standpoint. We're still waiting on some of the graphics assets to get in, and hopefully have a Steam page up for that very soon. Very excited about that. But I've already moved on to my next project, which is under the working title of Frooty and 7. And this game is very heavily inspired by the Sega Superscalar arcade games of the 80s, most notably Space Harrier, Outrun, and Afterburner, which are some of my favorite arcade games of the time. Space Harrier in particular is my favorite game, period. I absolutely love Space Harrier, and I've wanted to do a Space Harrier style game for a very long time. I attempted to do one many, many years ago that just didn't go anywhere, but this one is already looking a lot more promising. So this is going to fit into the whole narrative universe of Magical Fairy Force. It takes place after the events of Champion Edition. And it's going to star Frooty and the robot maid 7ZCBX, who are kind of a duo at this point. And you're going to be able to select from either of those two characters and fly through this Space Harrier style shoot 'em up. Now, at the moment, the game is 100% placeholder. Like, there's no, like everything. I've basically ripped a bunch of graphics from mostly various ports of Space Harrier just so I have something to work with. But I wanted to demonstrate where the engine is at right now. Just give you an idea of what this game is going to look like. So let's go ahead and take a look. So you can see it right away. This looks a lot like Space Harrier, Stage 1, which is what I'm modeling this after. And here comes Alex Kidd shooting some fireballs at me. And you got a lot of trees here. And we may notice there are some hill effects. Like here I'm kind of breaching, kind of coming over the top of a hill like an Outrun. And this came out really well. A lot better than I expected it to. I also have this really cool wall of trees on the left. So the wall of objects is something you saw a lot in particularly Outrun, but it was also an Afterburner in the canyon stages, where you just have a repeated object forming a wall. Now, right now, the player can't die at the moment, although hits are being detected by the code, but it's just not doing anything in reaction to them. And a really cool effect I got with this wall is if you go around to the outside of it, you get this real cool kind of bending around effect that was kind of inadvertent, but I really like it. Of course, in a real game, you won't be able to pass through the wall like that. I'm probably going to set up some kind of a hard barrier to prevent you from doing that. But I haven't gotten to that point yet. So you can see how the basic engine looks, and it looks a lot like Space Harrier. And if I go up, you get the perspective shift as you move up and down and all that. So that's all here. And objects drift to the left or the right based on your position on the x-axis. And it's all looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and reset the stage. Now, firing works as well, and I can shoot and destroy things. You can hear me clacking away on my keyboard here, so I can drop these Alex Kidds. And the hills are something I really wanted to do, was the Outrun style hills. And I really like here, like this one from a distance, you can see it kind of dip and come up. And this effect came out really well. I'm super happy with it. I have some other interesting effects I have in mind. And the stages are going to be a lot more varied in this game than they were in the original Space Harrier, which was largely just different colored grids you ran across with different enemies and different palettes. Whereas the stages in this game are going to look a lot more like, say, Afterburner or Outrun, where you have a variety of terrain types and things like that. And we can see here already the ground is not just a flat checkerboard like it is in Space Harrier. I have a texture to it that's in layers like Outrun or particularly Afterburner does this. Outrun kind of does it a little bit on the sides of the road where you see like things like fields that are just repeated textures like this. And that's kind of the style I'm going for. And I have a lot of really interesting stages in mind. I have a basic stage plan, and I'm going to keep moving forward and trying to find placeholders and stuff to make those plans work out before we get to the actual realistic graphics here. So at the moment I have the Space Harrier dude from the Master System port as a placeholder, and he can shoot, he can hit things. That all works, and that's great. Some objects are indestructible, like the trees make up this wall. I can't destroy these. I'm shooting at them right now. I hit one in the tree in the background there. But it's all here. Like all the fundamentals of Space Harrier are in place right now. And what's also interesting about this game from a technical perspective is that this is the first time I've used Vulkan. So up until now, I've been using OpenGL for all of my graphics. But I've decided to move to Vulkan. And this is my first shot at a Vulkan project. And it's not just a Vulkan project. It's a Vulkan project in Ada, which is my favorite programming language. And I couldn't find a satisfactory Vulkan interface for Ada, so I decided to write one myself. And you can find it on my website under the name Volcata. The download on the website only supports Vulkan up through version 1.0. I'm currently working on adding 1.1 support to it, and I'll eventually get to 1.2 and 1.3. So this game only makes use of Vulkan 1.0 through my custom Volcata interface, and it's working fantastically. I'm so happy with it. I have a lot to learn about Vulkan. I'm still getting the hang of it. It has a very, very difficult learning curve, but we're getting better and better at it. So I just kind of wanted to show that off and, give an idea of what I'm working on now. Now, in the long term, I do plan to have 2 selectable characters. I don't know if there's going to be differences between them or if it's just going to be cosmetic. I haven't really gotten to that decision yet. But one thing I really want to do with this game is to keep it simple. I've been a fan of Space Harrier for years. It's my favorite game ever. I've played it to death. And I've played a lot of remakes and things like that just don't get it. They don't understand what makes Space Harrier so good. And they really overcomplicate the game. For example, the worst offender I could think of off the top of my head is probably the PlayStation 2 Sega Ages remake of Space Harrier, which turned the game into full 3D. It lost all of its personality. It added all these unnecessary power-ups and shields and stuff like that just ruined the game. I want to keep the game simple. Fly, shoot, die in one hit, no power-ups, no weapons. Just move forward and destroy anything you can. I want to keep the essence of that in the game while adding neat things like the stuff that appeared in later Superscalar games like Outrun and Afterburner, like these walls and just more interesting terrain and things like that, but keeping the basic aspects of the game intact. I also want to avoid making the stages so complicated that you can't have too many of them. My plan right now is for 18 stages, just like the original game had. And I look at things like Planet Harriers, which is kind of a semi-sequel, which I never got the opportunity to play. I don't think it ever got a home port. But that game, as far as I know, it looks kind of cool, but it only has, I think, 4 stages. Because the stages are so detailed and so ornate that they couldn't do any. It was just too much. And I really like the idea of having a lot of simple stages. There's a whole ton of them. So that is kind of the direction I'm going in with this project. And, this is kind of an intentionally simple project because the focus for me here is really just coming to terms with Vulkan and getting it working. And I'm hoping it's going to have a much faster development time than Magical Fairy Force did because it's just a much simpler project. As I mentioned before, in terms of the game engine, there's not a whole lot that isn't done. I have to do boss fights and a lot of little detailed things, but the major stuff is all here. I've got my hills working, I've got flying, shooting, hit detection is fine. I've got enemies that shoot at you. I need to program new enemy patterns, things like that. But the vast majority of it is here, and it's very cool looking at the moment. So that's just kind of your introduction to the project and where it's going. And I just paused the game. It didn't lock up, so don't worry about that. So I just want to get that out there. And, as this game progresses, and especially as I start getting real graphics in instead of just placeholders, I'll probably run some more videos on this project. And, hopefully we'll get this one turned around fairly quickly. I'm very excited about it. Something I've wanted to do for so long. And, if you're interested, stay tuned to this channel and you'll eventually see more updates.